All right, that's what I have to say, and I turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Tom, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, absolutely.
Just about writing, improving student writing, I like that a lot. Do you give them any coaching about being concise or thoughtful, or what a Wikipedia entry, the type of writing is necessary for them?
I talk to them about succinctness and how to fit into the textual style of Wikipedia. But what's interesting is that they will also often put up a huge amount and someone else will come in and edit it down for them. So then they actually get somebody else who says, well, you could say that whole thing in like 2 sentences, and they'll change it on them. And so they actually get the feedback from somebody else who does that work for me.
I was curious because they probably didn't grow up reading encyclopedias, like using encyclopedias as
They did grow up using Wikipedia, though, 2 or 3 times a class. So they often can get this style pretty fast. Yeah.
So I have a quick question about when you decided on doing this as a class project, did you choose or start the topic deliberately? Because I know, I haven't done that, but in the past, having taught Spanish courses, a couple of colleagues who seriously thought about that.
Yeah.
We found out that there are some topics that have large following, and trying to change things is a frustrating endeavor.
Exactly.
Because even if you add really valuable information, it immediately gets rolled back and said to what actually isn't necessarily better, but most people want it.
Yeah, that becomes a big issue. And luckily with this material, it's pretty obscure. It's the kind of corners of the Wikipedia, and so it isn't quite as immediate as a bigger text. But you know, you can bring those things back that have been thrown out. You just have to kind of go to the talk area and you talk to the people who've thrown it out and kind of negotiate a settlement. So there's frameworks for doing that, but that's why I make students do the screenshots so that they've attempted, and then if they want to go on and enter into that, they can, and I encourage them to. But if they don't have time and its finals are coming, they don't lose the credit for not the fact it disappeared.
Had a discussion with your friend who's...
Yeah. What will happen a lot of times is somebody like Scolare, that's why I showed you him as a character, will go in and he'll just take out what you did immediately. Irrelevant! And then you say, no it isn't, and you put it back in. And then he says, irrelevant, and he puts it out again. And then you're marked as having a war, and Wikipedia will ban both of you from changing anything on any page for 24 hours. And so then you have to do it. And so people like Scolare know that. So what they'll say when you revert it is they will say, let's go to talk. And you go to the talk page and you talk out the differences. And he says what he's angry about. And you say, well, here's my evidence. And then with the University of Wisconsin page, I put in the stuff with students in another class on the effigy mounds, and I felt that was really important that they be talked about, and somebody immediately threw it out. That's not important. Bucky Badger is important, but effigy mounds? So I was like really pissed. I said, yes it is, revert, and we got into this war. But eventually we got the thing down to where it exists, shorter than what I would have had before.
It's a little extreme, really.
Well, they call it a war because they want you to learn how to... And what you have to do is back up. The students or anyone working on it they have to back up their points with sources, credible sources. Mm-hmm. And if you've got the sources, then people can be angry, but they let it be anyways.
The ancient
people were checking, I mean, these are just random people. I mean,
it's all volunteer. There is a bot that comes through, which is a robot that will will look for formatting errors and fix some of those things and clean the thing up. There are other people who go through and fix for style and make sure that there's nothing incendiary that's being done. But mostly it's just volunteers.
You're linking to the ancient text, correct? Is it
When it's possible to do that, it happens that there's a great edition of Kogach. That's
Google book or something?
it's a Google book, yeah, with a
Nice.
So it's my understanding that on certain pages, once it's Wikipedia or like kind of higher up editors,
Yeah.
they certify it and then it can't be editable? Is that-
Yes, absolutely. If you go to the, and this is something to keep in mind when you're selecting a page, right? So the page, I think, on Jews is sealed. So it can be edited, but you have to have a lot of, hierarchical power within the Wikipedia community to change things on it. And that's because it had become really contentious with people saying a lot of things, and it was not what Wikipedia wanted. So they sealed it. But what you also have are people who become really active in an area. They have and this Scolare is one of them. And so he's been kind of identified by Wikipedia as being super active, and so they've given him access to more texts, and they've kind of encouraged him to be the watchdog on things Celtic. And there's one, and so you'll find people kind of carving out bailiwicks for themselves in Wikipedia. And then it might be baseball cards, it might be carburetors, it's whatever their interests are, and they have a set of pages that they check, and you can put a thing on Wikipedia that says anytime a change is done on that page, I want to see it.
I had this perception that it was actually a bunch of middle schoolers.
There's been a lot of good ethnography on who it is who does Wikipedia, and it tends to be guys in their 20s. That's where it kind of fits, but there's a lot of effort now trying to diversify the people who work on Wikipedia, and that's what will make it better.
So is the use going up or kind of?
It's an immense. It's I think number 4 for use. I think Wikipedia is
behind Google and Facebook
yeah.
and YouTube probably.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, so you talked about gender biases
Yeah.
in Wikipedia. So a lot of the language that you're using and just hierarchy and authority.
Yeah.
It's very
Absolutely.
masculine space.
Absolutely.
So just
Yeah.
wondering if you're talking, you have
And
your
it's
conversation
very
as
aggressive.
well.
It's very aggressive. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's very male as a thing. When you get into the talk section, you can kind of see users. You don't necessarily know what gender the users are, but you can see people kind of ratcheting things down and saying, "Oh, can't we make a compromise?" And then things will happen. And
No, but is this a conversation in your class about?
yes, absolutely. And it ties in with the fact that, see, all of this is modeling medieval texts in this class. The medieval texts are produced by men, for men, about men, right? So I'm helping them see the way that male bias in medieval text works by looking at the very same thing in Wikipedia, and how if there had been female scribes in the medieval period, it would have been we would have different materials from the medieval era. So, so in that way, that's a kind of it's not affronted, but it's kind of a covert goal I have for the work. Yeah. Lane.
You might have mentioned this a little bit, but I wanted to make sure I just understood it completely. How much independence do you give the students in terms of what topics they select, what pages they select to edit?
They tell me what topic they're going to do and what they're planning to do. I used to make them give me the material beforehand, and I would kind of tinker it. But now I just say, okay, put it up, and if I don't like it, I'll take it down. So,
Wikipedia.
yeah.
But anything they want to talk about?
It has to relate to one of the texts that we've covered in the course,
Okay.
or one of the characters that are in one of the texts. We read about 14 medieval texts over the course of 15 weeks. So,
Have you
Yeah.
talked to other people who've done this, where they've had a class that's a little bit more covered, more ground that's been more covered in Wikipedia? So yours maybe hasn't been covered by as many people, not as many have heard of the text. Let's say they're talking about carburetors.
I've done things with freshman groups on the University of Wisconsin page, and that's got thousands of users every day. So.
Do you give them more direction then?
Well, it depends on the level. Those were freshmen, or first-year students, so I did give them a lot of guidance on that. And so you want to tailor that to what kind of thing. But my goal in this assignment is to really empower students to be independent and to join into the Wikipedia community, as it's called, community, they use these terms, and to actually, learn get under the cover of this product that they have thought is fact, and realize the sociology of how it's created, and also improve it, and become active learners on their own, and share. And because in their work lives, they're not going to be medievalists. They'll probably be working in a business or something else, and they'll learn how to they can learn from this assignment how to make their point and how to convince others.